The invitation arrived on cream paper, embossed with gold lettering that caught the afternoon light streaming through my office window. Margaret and Robert Chen cordially invite you to celebrate their 40th wedding anniversary in Tuscany, my parents' anniversary. 3 days in Italy, family photos by ancient vineyards, speeches about legacy and love. I traced my finger over the elegant script, feeling something cold settle in my chest. I called my sister Emma that evening. "Did you get the invitation?" "Of course." She laughed, that bright sound that had always made me feel smaller. "Mom's been planning this for months. The whole family's going, even cousin David is flying in from Singapore." "Great. I'll book my flight tomorrow." There was a pause. "Oh, honey, didn't Mom tell you? We already booked everyone's tickets. Group rate, you know. We got a fantastic deal through Robert's travel agent." "Everyone?" "Well, the immediate family. You know how these group bookings work, they have to be done all at once." I stared out my apartment window at the city lights below, each one a small, distant star. "So what about my ticket?" "I'm sure Mom will figure something out. You know how she is with details." But I knew exactly how my mother was with details. Every Christmas seating chart with my chair placed slightly apart from the main table. Every family photo where I somehow ended up at the edge, half cut from the frame. Every birthday dinner where my dietary restrictions were forgotten, leaving me to smile politely over a plate I couldn't eat. The next morning, I called my mother directly. Her voice was crisp, efficient, the tone she used for handling household staff. "Darling, of course we want you there. It's just that the group booking was so complicated, and you know how busy you are with work. We thought you might prefer to make your own arrangements." "I see. The hotel is fully booked, but I'm sure you can find something nearby. Maybe one of those charming little bed and breakfasts." I hung up and sat in my corner office, watching the morning sun paint shadows across the mahogany desk that had belonged to my grandfather. The same grandfather whose company I now ran, whose empire I had doubled in size over the past 5 years. The irony wasn't lost on me. My assistant knocked and entered with coffee and the morning reports. "Miss Chen, your mother called. Something about travel arrangements?" "It's handled, Sarah. Actually, could you get me James on the line?" James Morrison, our head of corporate aviation, answered on the second ring. "What can I do for you, boss?" "I need to get to Tuscany this weekend. The Greve and Chianti area." "No problem. Commercial or?" I looked at the framed photo on my desk, the company jet gleaming white against a blue sky, our logo bold and unmistakable along the fuselage. "Prepare the Gulf Stream." The silence that followed felt like a held breath, like the moment before thunder. The flight to Italy gave me 13 hours of silence above the clouds. I pressed my face against a small window, watching the Atlantic stretch endlessly below, dark and unforgiving. The cabin was empty except for me and the soft hum of engines that had carried Fortune 500 CEOs and foreign ministers across continents. Now it carried one forgotten daughter to her parents' anniversary. I pulled out my laptop and tried to work, but the numbers blurred together. Instead, I found myself scrolling through the family group chat I'd been added to months ago. Photos of Emma's children at soccer practice. Updates about Uncle Peter's retirement party. Plans for the anniversary weekend that I watched unfold like a movie I wasn't invited to star in. Landed in Rome. The weather is perfect. Emma had posted 6 hours ago with a photo of the family clustered together at the airport. My parents, my brother Michael with his wife and twins, Emma and her husband, 17 people total, all holding matching luggage tags, all smiling in that effortless way that comes from belonging. The flight attendant, Maria, brought me dinner on fine china. "Will there be anything else, Miss Chan?" "Just quiet," I said, and she nodded with the kind of professional understanding that costs $300 an hour. I closed the laptop and walked to the back of the cabin, where floor-to-ceiling windows offered an unobstructed view of the sky. Somewhere below, my family was probably having dinner at some quaint trattoria, laughing over wine and pasta, taking photos for social media. "The whole gang's here," they'd caption it, and no one would notice the missing face. My phone buzzed. A text from my mother. "Hope you're finding suitable accommodations, dear. See you at the villa tomorrow at 6. I typed and deleted a dozen responses. Finally, I sent back, looking forward to it. The plane began its descent as dawn broke over the Italian countryside. Rolling hills dotted with cypress trees, ancient stone walls that had witnessed 1,000 years of family celebrations. I pressed my palm against the cool window and wondered if this was how exile felt, not the dramatic banishment of fairy tales, but the slow, careful erasure from family photos and group bookings. We landed at a private airfield outside Florence, where a black car waited on the tarmac. The driver, a man named Giuseppe with kind eyes and careful English, loaded my single suitcase into the trunk. "Beautiful morning for flying," he said as we pulled away from the airfield. "Yes," I replied, watching the Gulf Stream grow smaller in the side mirror, its white body gleaming like a promise in the morning sun. "Beautiful." The drive to Greve in Chianti took an hour through winding roads that seemed carved from postcards. Giuseppe pointed out landmarks: a medieval church, a vineyard that had been in the same family for 6 centuries, a villa where Napoleon had once stayed. I listened with half my attention, the other half focused on the weight settling in my chest, heavy as stone. We passed a small hotel with ivy-covered walls and window boxes full of geraniums. "Perhaps you stay here?" Giuseppe asked, slowing the car. "No," I said quietly. "Keep driving." The villa appeared around a bend like something from a Renaissance painting. Honey-colored stone, terrace gardens, olive trees that cast dappled shadows across the gravel drive. Cars were parked in neat rows, rental cars, all identical, all booked together. I counted them twice. 17 people, 8 cars, 1 missing daughter. Giuseppe stopped at the entrance. "Shall I wait?" I looked at the villa, at the laughter drifting from the terrace, at the family I could see gathered around tables set with white linens and fresh flowers. "No," I said. "I'll call when I need you." He handed me his card with a small bow. "Enjoy your family, Signorina." I stood alone on the gravel drive, listening to the sound of my heels against stone, and wondered if anyone inside had noticed the sound of a car arriving. I walked through the villa's entrance hall, my footsteps echoing against marble floors that had been polished to mirror brightness. Voices drifted from the terrace: Emma's laugh, my father's deep baritone explaining something about wine vintages, children shrieking with delight as they chased each other through the gardens. "Sophia," my mother's voice cut through the morning air, sharp with surprise. "You made it!" She appeared in the doorway wearing a flowing white dress that caught the Italian sun, her silver hair perfectly styled despite the early hour. Behind her, the family turned like a choreographed dance, faces I'd known my entire life, expressions shifting from surprise to something that might have been guilt. "I told you I'd be here," I said, kissing her cheek. Her perfume was the same jasmine scent she'd worn since I was a child, the one that used to comfort me during thunderstorms. "Of course, darling. We just weren't sure about your arrangements." Emma rushed over, her arms outstretched. "Soph, how was your flight? Was it terrible?" We felt so bad about the mix-up with the tickets. "The flight was fine," I said, accepting her hug. "Very smooth." My father appeared, distinguished in his linen shirt and perfectly pressed slacks. At 72, Robert Chen still commanded attention when he entered a room, still spoke with the authority of a man who had built a small import business into a regional empire before selling it to me for $1 and his blessing. "There's my girl," he said, his smile warm but distant. "You look tired." "Long journey?" "Not too long." Uncle Peter clapped me on the shoulder. "Commercial flights these days, eh? Cattle cars with wings. Remember when flying used to be elegant?" I nodded and smiled, playing the part I'd perfected over 34 years. The grateful daughter, the one who understood her place. Breakfast was served on the terrace overlooking vineyards that stretched to the horizon. I found myself seated at the far end of the table, next to cousin David's wife, who spent the meal showing me photos of their new house in Singapore. The conversation flowed around me like water around a stone: stories I wasn't part of, memories that didn't include me, plans for activities I hadn't been consulted about. "So we're thinking wine tasting this afternoon," Emma announced, consulting her phone. "I made reservations for 18 people." 18? I asked. "Oh," Emma's face flushed. "I mean, I can call and change it to 19. If you want to come." The table went quiet. Even the children stopped their chatter. My mother dabbed her lips with her napkin, a gesture I recognized as her way of buying time. "I'm sure Sophia has her own plans," she said finally. "You know how independent she is." I set down my coffee cup, the delicate clink against the saucer unnaturally loud. Actually, I was hoping to spend time with the family. It's been a while since we were all together. Of course, my father said quickly, family first. That's what this weekend is about. But I caught the look that passed between my parents, the same look I'd seen 1,000 times before. The look that said, how do we handle this? How do we make room for the daughter who never quite fit? After breakfast, I walked alone through the villa's gardens while the family prepared for their wine tour. Ancient olive trees provided shade from the climbing sun, and somewhere in the distance, church bells marked the passing hours. I found a stone bench beside a fountain and pulled out my phone. Sarah answered on the first ring. Miss Chan? How's Italy? Beautiful, I said, watching water cascade over carved cherubs. Sarah, I need you to do something for me. Of course. Contact the Castello di Verrazzano. Tell them Sophia Chen from Chen Industries would like to arrange a private tour for this afternoon. For one. Just one? I closed my eyes and listened to the fountain's gentle music. Just one. An hour later, Giuseppe's car pulled up the villa's drive. I was waiting by the entrance, having changed into a simple black dress and the pearl necklace my grandmother had left me. The family was loading into their rental cars, a convoy of matching vehicles that would carry them to their group reservation. Sophia? Emma called out. Aren't you coming with us? I have other plans, I said, walking toward Giuseppe's car. My mother appeared at my elbow. Darling, where are you going? We should stay together as a family. I paused with my hand on the car door. I'm going wine tasting, just like you, but separately. I looked at her, really looked at her, this woman who had given me life but never quite figured out how to give me belonging. Apparently, that's how we do things in this family. Giuseppe held the door open, and I slipped into the back seat. Through the window, I watched my family's faces, saw the confusion and something that might have been regret. But it was too late for regret. Some silences, once broken, can never be repaired. As we drove away, I pulled out my phone and scrolled to a contact I rarely used. James? It's Sophia. I need you to file a flight plan for tomorrow evening. And James? Make sure the plane is visible from the main road when we land. The Tuscan countryside blurred past the window, beautiful and indifferent, while I planned my own quiet revolution. The Castello di Verrazzano rose from the hillside like something from a Renaissance dream, its ancient stones golden in the afternoon light. Giuseppe parked in the circular drive, and I stepped out to find a man in an impeccable suit waiting for me. Miss Chan? I am Marco Verrazzano. Welcome to our family's home. His handshake was firm, his smile genuine. Behind him, the castle stretched across the hilltop, its towers and terraces commanding a view that had remained unchanged for 8 centuries. This was old money, old power, the kind that didn't need to announce itself. Thank you for accommodating me on such short notice. For the CEO of Chen Industries, it is our pleasure. Your company's work in sustainable agriculture has been inspiring. I followed him through corridors lined with family portraits, each face watching from gilded frames with the quiet confidence that comes from centuries of belonging. We emerged onto a terrace where a table had been set for one, crystal glasses, silver cutlery, white linens that caught the breeze. We will begin with our 2019 Chianti Classico, Marco said, pouring wine the color of garnets. This vineyard has been in my family for 26 generations. I sipped the wine, tasting earth and sunshine and something deeper, the weight of tradition, of roots that ran deeper than memory. It's extraordinary. My great-great-grandmother planted these vines during the war, he continued, settling into the chair across from me. When the Germans came, she buried the best bottles in the cellar walls. Some we still haven't found. We talked for an hour about wine, about history, about the delicate balance between honoring the past and embracing change. Marco spoke with the easy confidence of someone who had never questioned his place in the world, never wondered if he belonged at his own family's table. You seem thoughtful today, he observed as we moved to the second wine, a reserve that had been aging since before I was born. Family gatherings, I said simply. He nodded with understanding. Ah. The weight of expectations, the weight of not meeting them. Marco studied me for a moment, his dark eyes kind. In my experience, the problem is rarely with the person who feels they don't belong. It is with those who make them feel that way, My phone buzzed. A text from Emma. "Where are you? We're having the most amazing time. Wish you were here." I showed Marco the message. He read it and raised an eyebrow. "They wish you were there, but they did not invite you to be there. It's complicated." "No," he said quietly. "It is simple. Family either includes you, or it does not. There is no middle ground." We moved inside as the sun began to set, walking through the castle's wine cellars where bottles lay sleeping in ancient racks. Marco pulled one from the wall. Its label faded with age. 1985, he said. "A very good year. The year I was born, actually. My father saved this bottle for a special occasion. What makes today special?" He smiled. "Sometimes the special occasion is simply deciding you deserve one." He opened the bottle with ceremony, pouring the wine into glasses that had been in his family for generations. The wine was perfect, complex, mature, confident in its own worth. "To family," he said, raising his glass. "To chosen family," I corrected, and we drank. As evening fell, Giuseppe returned to collect me. Marco walked me to the car, carrying a bottle of the 1985 vintage wrapped in tissue paper. "A gift," he said, "for when you decide you deserve another special occasion." During the drive back to the villa, my phone rang constantly. Emma, my mother, even my father, all wondering where I was, when I'd be back, whether I was all right. I let each call go to voicemail, listening instead to the sound of tires on ancient roads. The villa was ablaze with lights when we arrived. Through the windows, I could see the family gathered for dinner, animated conversations over plates of pasta and local wine. They looked happy, complete, like a painting of the perfect family celebration. I paid Giuseppe and added a generous tip. "Thank you for today. Prego, signorina. Will you need me tomorrow?" I looked up at the villa, at the warm light spilling from its windows, at the family I could see but somehow couldn't reach. "Yes, tomorrow evening." "And Giuseppe?" "Make sure you're on time." I climbed the steps to the villa's entrance, the bottle of wine tucked under my arm like a secret. Inside, I could hear my mother's voice rising above the others. "She's been gone all day. I don't understand what's gotten into her." I paused in the doorway, watching them through the glass. My family, my blood, the people who had shaped me and scarred me and somehow never quite learned how to love me the way I needed to be loved. Tomorrow, I decided, would indeed be a special occasion. I entered the dining room as dessert was being served, tiramisu dusted with cocoa, accompanied by small glasses of limoncello that caught the candlelight like liquid gold. The conversation paused as I appeared, 23 faces turning toward me with expressions ranging from relief to curiosity to something that might have been guilt. "There you are." My mother rose from her chair, her smile bright but strained. "We were worried sick." "Where on earth have you been?" "Wine tasting," I said, taking the empty seat that had been left for me at the far end of the table. "At Castello di Verrazzano," Uncle Peter whistled low. "Verrazzano? That's not exactly a walk-in kind of place. How did you manage that?" I placed a wrap bottle on the table, the tissue paper crinkling softly. I called ahead. Emma leaned forward, her eyes bright with wine and curiosity. "What was it like?" "We heard it's incredible, but the waiting list is supposed to be months long." "It was educational," I said, accepting a plate of tiramisu from my cousin's wife. Marco Verrazzano gave me a private tour. We discussed the importance of inclusion. My father cleared his throat. "Well, that's wonderful, sweetheart. I'm glad you had a nice time." I did. Very nice. I took a small bite of dessert, letting the silence stretch. He told me about his family's history. 26 generations in the same place. Can you imagine? Never having to question whether you belong. The table had gone quiet again. That particular stillness that falls when everyone understands the subtext but no one wants to acknowledge it. "Sophia," my mother said carefully, "if this is about the flight arrangements, it's not about the flights." I set down my spoon, the small clink unnaturally loud. "It's about the pattern. The Christmas where you forgot to buy me a gift. The graduation where you booked a table for 6 when there were 7 of us. The wedding planning where Emma got 3 bridesmaids and I got to hold her bouquet." "That's not," Emma started. "The board meeting where you introduced Michael as your son and heir, and me as Sophia, who helps with the business." I looked directly at my father. Even though I've been running the company for 5 years, My father's face flushed. You know how proud I am of you. Do I? The silence that followed felt like a held breath. Even the children had stopped their chatter, sensing the shift in the room's atmosphere. My mother dabbed her eyes with her napkin. We never meant to make you feel excluded. But you did. I stood, the bottle of wine in my hands. For 34 years you did. And the remarkable thing is, I kept coming back. I kept hoping that maybe this time would be different. Maybe this time, I'd be enough. I unwrapped the bottle, revealing the faded 1985 label. This wine is from the year I was born. Marco Verrazzano's father saved it for a special occasion. Do you know what Marco told me? Sometimes the special occasion is simply deciding you deserve one. I walked to the head of the table, where my parents sat side by side, their faces pale in the candlelight. I've spent my entire life trying to earn a place at this table, but I've realized something today. I don't need to earn it. I deserve it. And if you can't see that, I paused, looking around the table at faces I'd known since childhood. Then maybe the problem isn't with me. I set the bottle down in front of my mother. Happy anniversary. I hope you enjoy the wine. It's very rare. Like daughters who keep trying despite everything. I turned to leave, but my father's voice stopped me. Sophia, please. I looked back at him, this man who had built an empire and somehow forgotten to build a relationship with his daughter. Please what, Dad? Don't go. Not like this. I smiled, and for the first time in years, it felt genuine. I'm not going anywhere. I'll be here for the rest of the celebration. But things are going to be different now. I'm done shrinking myself to fit into spaces that were never meant for me. I walked to the terrace doors, needing air, needing space, needing to breathe. Behind me, I could hear whispered conversations starting, the family processing what had just happened. My phone buzzed. A text from James. Flight plan filed. ETA tomorrow p.m. local time. Cleared for approach at Florence International. I typed back. Perfect. Make sure we circle the villa twice before landing. Outside, the Tuscan night was soft and warm, filled with the scent of jasmine and the distant sound of church bells. I stood at the terrace railing, looking out over vineyards that had witnessed centuries of family dramas, and felt something shift inside my chest. Not anger, not hurt, but something cleaner, something that felt like freedom. Tomorrow, I would show them exactly who Sophia Chen had become. And for the first time in my life, I wouldn't apologize for taking up space. The morning of my parents' anniversary dawned clear and golden, the kind of Tuscan sunrise that poets write about and tourists photograph but never quite capture. I woke early in the small room I'd been given, not the master suite that Emma and her family occupied, not even one of the larger guest rooms, but a modest space tucked away on the villa's third floor, as if I were a distant relative rather than a daughter. I dressed carefully in a navy silk dress that had cost more than most people's monthly salary, paired with the diamond earrings my grandmother had left me. In the mirror, I looked like what I was, a successful woman who had learned to armor herself in elegance. Downstairs, the family was already gathering for the anniversary celebration. The villa's staff had transformed the main terrace into something from a magazine spread, white flowers cascading from every surface, tables draped in ivory linens, a string quartet tuning their instruments in the corner. My mother moved through it all like a queen surveying her domain, adjusting a flower here, repositioning a chair there. "Good morning, darling," she said when she saw me, her voice carefully neutral. "You look lovely." "Thank you. Everything looks beautiful." We stood together for a moment, watching the staff make final preparations. The silence between us felt different now, not comfortable, but not hostile either. More like the quiet before a storm that everyone knows is coming. "Sophia," she said finally, "about last night, let's not." I said gently, "Not today. Today is about celebrating 40 years of marriage. We can talk about everything else later." She nodded, relief flickering across her face. "Yes, later." The ceremony was scheduled for 6 o'clock, just as the sun would begin its descent toward the horizon. Guests began arriving in the afternoon: family, friends, business associates, people who had known my parents for decades. I moved through the crowd with practiced grace, making conversation, accepting compliments on the company's recent expansion, deflecting questions about my own personal life with the skill of someone who had been doing it for years. Sophia, Mrs. Patterson, my mother's oldest friend, embraced me warmly. Look at you, absolutely glowing. Your mother tells me the business is doing wonderfully. We've been fortunate, I said, accepting a glass of Prosecco from a passing waiter. And no special someone in your life? A successful woman like you? I smiled the smile I'd perfected for such questions. I'm very focused on my career right now. Well, don't wait too long, dear. Time has a way of slipping by. As the afternoon wore on, I found myself watching my family with new eyes. Emma, radiant in a rose-colored dress, holding court with stories about her children's latest achievements. Michael, confident and charming, discussing his law practice with anyone who would listen. My parents, gracious and elegant, accepting congratulations and well wishes with the ease of people who had never doubted their place in the world. And me, moving through it all like a ghost at my own family celebration. At 5:30, I excused myself and walked to the villa's highest terrace, where I could see the road winding through the valley below. My phone showed several missed calls from James, but I didn't need to answer them. I could hear it now, the distant hum of jet engines growing steadily louder. The Gulf Stream appeared first as a glint of white against the blue sky, then larger, more distinct, its wings catching the late afternoon sun. It circled the villa once, low enough that the guests on the terrace began pointing and shading their eyes against the glare. Then again, slower this time, the company logo clearly visible on the fuselage, Chan Industries in bold letters that could be read from the ground. What on earth? I heard my mother's voice from below, sharp with confusion. The plane banged toward Florence, its engines fading into the distance. I checked my watch. 7 o'clock. Perfect timing. I walked back down to the terrace, where the anniversary ceremony was about to begin. The guests had taken their seats, my family arranged in the front row like a portrait of success and happiness. The officiant, a local priest who spoke charmingly accented English, began the renewal of vows with words about love and commitment and the bonds that hold families together. My parents stood before him, hands clasped, faces glowing with 40 years of shared history. They looked genuinely happy, genuinely in love, and for a moment I felt a pang of something that might have been envy, not for their marriage, but for their certainty, their unshakable belief that they deserved happiness, deserved celebration, deserved to be the center of attention on their special day. Do you, Margaret, take Robert to be your husband for another 40 years of love and partnership? I do. And do you, Robert, take Margaret to be your wife, through whatever joys and challenges the future may bring? I do. The priest smiled. Then, by the power vested in me, and in the presence of your loving family, I pronounce you husband and wife, renewed in love and commitment. You may kiss your bride. The applause was warm and genuine, champagne corks popping as the sun painted the sky in shades of gold and rose. I clapped along with everyone else, playing my part in the family tableau. My phone buzzed. A text from Giuseppe. Arriving in 10 minutes, Signorina. I slipped away from the celebration, walking through the villa's halls one last time. In my small room, I packed quickly, efficiently, the way I'd learned to do over years of business travel. One suitcase, one carry-on, everything I needed to return to my real life. The sound of car tires on gravel announced Giuseppe's arrival. I met him at the entrance, where he took my bags with his usual quiet courtesy. The airport, Signorina? Yes, but slowly. I want to say goodbye. I walked back to the terrace, where the party was in full swing. My family was gathered around the cake table, my mother preparing to cut an elaborate confection decorated with sugar flowers. They looked happy, complete, like a perfect family celebrating a perfect moment. Sophia? Emma appeared at my elbow. Where are you going with those bags? The conversation around us gradually quieted as people noticed my suitcase, my traveling clothes, the obvious signs of departure. Home, I said simply, but the party's just getting started. And tomorrow we were going to, I know, but I have a company to run. My mother looked up from the cake, her face stricken. You're leaving? Now? I walked over to her, kissed her cheek gently. Happy anniversary, Mom. 40 years is quite an achievement. Sophia, please, don't go like this. I looked around the terrace at the faces watching me, some confused, some concerned, some perhaps beginning to understand. I'm not going like anything. I'm going like myself. Finally, I hugged Emma, shook hands with Michael, accepted awkward embraces from aunts and uncles who suddenly seemed to realize they barely knew me. My father was the last, his eyes bright with something that might have been tears. "I'm proud of you," he said quietly. "I know I don't say it enough, but I am. I know, Dad. But pride isn't the same as inclusion." He nodded slowly, understanding passing between us like a shared secret. I walked toward the entrance, my heels clicking against marble one last time. At the doorway, I turned back to see them all watching me, my family, frozen into blow against the backdrop of their perfect celebration. "Enjoy the rest of your evening," I said. "And Mom, open that wine I brought. Life's too short to save the good bottles for occasions that may never come." Giuseppe was waiting by the car, and as we drove away, I could see the villa growing smaller in the side mirror, its lights twinkling like stars against a darkening sky. "The airport, Signorina?" "Yes. And Giuseppe, thank you for everything. Pray go." "It was my pleasure to serve you." As we wound through the Tuscan hills, I rolled down the window and let the warm evening air wash over me. Somewhere behind us, my family was probably discussing my dramatic exit, trying to make sense of what had just happened. But for the first time in my life, I wasn't worried about what they thought. I was finally going home to the life I had built for myself, the company I had grown, the success I had earned without apology. And if they wanted to be part of that life, they would have to learn to make room for all of me, not just the parts that fit their expectations. The plane was waiting on the tarmac when we arrived, its white body gleaming under the airport lights, the Chen Industries logo bold and unmistakable. James met me at the bottom of the stairs, his expression professionally neutral but his eyes warm with something that might have been respect. "How was the family celebration, Miss Chen?" I paused at the foot of the aircraft stairs, looking back toward the hills where my family was probably still trying to understand what had happened. "Educational," I said finally. "Very educational." As we climbed into the sky above Tuscany, I opened my laptop and began reviewing the quarterly reports that had been waiting for my attention. Below us, the lights of Italy faded into darkness, and ahead lay the life I had chosen, the success I had earned, the future I would write on my own terms. For the first time in 34 years, I was exactly where I belonged. The flight back to New York stretched through the night, 13 hours of silence above the Atlantic that gave me time to process what I'd left behind in Tuscany. I tried to focus on quarterly projections and merger proposals, but my mind kept drifting back to the look on my mother's face when I walked away from her anniversary party. Not hurt exactly, something deeper than that. Recognition, maybe. The dawning understanding that the daughter she'd spent 34 years trying to reshape had finally stopped trying to fit the mold. We landed at Teterboro just as the Manhattan skyline was catching the first light of dawn. James handled the customs paperwork with his usual efficiency while I stood on the tarmac, breathing in the familiar smell of jet fuel and ambition that meant home. "Miss Chen?" Sarah was waiting by the car, tablet in hand, looking as composed as if it were a normal Tuesday morning instead of the aftermath of a family earthquake. "Welcome back. I've rescheduled your meetings for today, but the Morrison Group is still expecting you at 2, thank you." I slid into the back seat of the town car, watching the city wake up around us. "Any messages?" 47 emails, 12 voicemails, and she hesitated. "Your sister called 6 times. Your mother called twice." They seemed concerned. I closed my eyes as we crossed the Queensboro Bridge, Manhattan spreading out before us like a promise. "Hold my calls until after the Morrison meeting." All of them. The office felt different when I walked in that morning. Or maybe I felt different. The mahogany desk that had belonged to my grandfather seemed more solid somehow, more mine. The view of Central Park from the 42nd floor looked like exactly what it was the view from the top. "Miss Chen?" My assistant knocked and entered with coffee and the morning reports. "The Morrison Group confirmed for 2 o'clock. Also, there's a package that arrived this morning from Italy." She placed a small box on my desk, wrapped in brown paper and covered with international shipping labels. My name was written in careful script across the top, and when I opened it, I found a bottle of olive oil from the Castello di Verrazzano along with a handwritten note. For someone who knows her worth, may you always choose the special occasions. Marco. I set the bottle on the credenza next to the photo of my grandfather, where it caught the morning light like liquid gold. Some gifts, I realized, come from the most unexpected places. The Morrison meeting went better than expected. 3 hours of negotiations that ended with a handshake and a deal that would expand Chen Industries into the European market. As I walked them to the elevator, James Morrison paused at the threshold of my office. Impressive operation you've built here, Sophia. Your grandfather would be proud. Thank you. One question, though. That plane we saw circling the villa yesterday, that was yours? I smiled. The first genuine smile I'd felt in days. Chen Industries maintains a fleet for business purposes. He laughed, understanding passing between us like a shared secret. Of course, business purposes. After they left, I stood at my office window, looking down at the city that had become my real family. Somewhere out there, people were building empires and chasing dreams and learning to value themselves. Somewhere out there, daughters were discovering that love shouldn't require them to shrink. My phone buzzed. A text from Emma. Please call me. We need to talk. I stared at the message for a long moment, then set the phone aside. Some conversations could wait. Some silences needed to stretch until they meant something. Instead, I called down to the legal department. This is Sophia Chen. I need you to draft a press release. Chen Industries is establishing a new scholarship fund for first-generation college students. Focus on those who've had to build their own support systems. What should we call it? I looked at the photo on my desk. My grandfather at the groundbreaking ceremony for the company's first warehouse, his face bright with the kind of hope that comes from believing in your own worth. The Belonging Fund, I said, for students who understand that sometimes you have to create your own place at the table. That evening, I worked late in the empty office, the city lights twinkling below like stars. The quarterly reports were finally finished, the Morrison contracts were signed, and the press release about the scholarship fund was ready for morning distribution. My phone rang. My mother's name appeared on the screen, and after a moment's hesitation, I answered, "Hello, Mom." Sophia. Her voice was soft and certain. I wasn't sure you'd pick up. I almost didn't. There was a pause, filled with the weight of 40 years of misunderstandings. We opened the wine you brought, the 1985. How was it? Perfect. Absolutely perfect. Another pause. Like you said, too good to save for an occasion that might never come. I closed my eyes, feeling something shift in my chest. Not forgiveness exactly, not yet, but the possibility of it, like dawn on the horizon. Mom, I need you to understand something. I'm not angry anymore, but I'm also not the same person who left for Italy. I know. I can hear it in your voice. Good. Because if we're going to rebuild this, it has to be on different terms. I won't shrink myself anymore. I won't apologize for taking up space. I wouldn't want you to. Her voice was thick with something that might have been tears. I'm proud of the woman you've become, Sophia. I don't know how to show it. Learn. I said simply. We both have to learn. After I hung up, I sat in the quiet office for a long time, watching the city breathe below me. Change, I realized, doesn't happen in dramatic gestures. It happens in small moments of choice, in the decision to value yourself even when others don't, and the courage to walk away from tables where you're not truly welcome. Tomorrow, there would be more conversations, more difficult truths, more opportunities to choose myself without apology. But tonight, I was exactly where I belonged. 6 months later, I stood in the same Tuscan villa where everything had changed, but this time the circumstances were entirely different. The morning sun streamed through tall windows as I adjusted the microphone on the makeshift podium, looking out at an audience that would have been unimaginable during my parents' anniversary celebration. 50 young women sat in neat rows of chairs arranged across the villa's main terrace, their faces bright with anticipation and possibility. The first recipients of the Belonging Fund scholarship gathered for a week-long leadership retreat in the very place where I'd learned to claim my own worth. Good morning, I began, my voice carrying clearly across the terrace. 6 months ago, I stood in this exact spot and made a choice. Not a dramatic choice, not a vengeful choice, but a quiet decision to stop apologizing for who I am. The young women leaned forward, their attention complete. These were daughters who had built their own support systems, students who had learned early that belonging isn't given, it's claimed. Today, I want to talk to you about the difference between fitting in and belonging. Fitting in requires you to change yourself to match the space. Belonging means the space expands to include all of who you are. As I spoke, I caught sight of movement at the villa's entrance. A familiar figure in an elegant cream dress, silver hair perfectly styled despite the early hour. My mother had arrived, as she'd promised she would when I'd called to invite her to the retreat's opening ceremony. We'd been rebuilding slowly, carefully, like archaeologists uncovering something precious and fragile. Weekly phone calls that gradually became easier. A dinner in New York where she'd asked about my work, really asked, with genuine interest. Small gestures that added up to something that might eventually become understanding. The women who came before us, I continued, often had to choose between success and belonging. They fought for seats at tables that were never meant to include them. But all of you have the opportunity to build new tables, better tables, tables where belonging isn't conditional. After the presentation, I walked through the gardens with the scholarship recipients, listening to their stories, their dreams, their plans to change the world. Maria, whose immigrant parents had worked 3 jobs to send her to college. Aisha, who'd aged out of foster care and put herself through business school. Jennifer, whose family had disowned her for choosing career over marriage. Each story was different, but the thread that connected them was the same: the quiet courage of women who had learned to value themselves even when others didn't. Miss Chan? Maria approached me as the group prepared for their afternoon workshop. I wanted to thank you, not just for the scholarship, but for this, for showing us that it's possible to succeed without compromising who you are. You don't need to thank me, I said. You earned this. All of you did. That evening, my mother and I sat on the villa's highest terrace, sharing a bottle of wine as the sun set over the Tuscan hills. The same view, the same golden light, but everything between us had shifted. They're remarkable young women, she said, watching the scholarship recipients gathered around tables below, their laughter drifting up through the evening air. They remind me of someone I used to know. She turned to look at me, understanding in her eyes. Your grandmother. And you, the woman you were before you learned to make yourself smaller for other people's comfort. We sat in comfortable silence for a while, 2 women who had finally learned how to share space without one of them disappearing. I have something for you, my mother said, reaching into her purse. She pulled out a small velvet box, worn soft with age. This was your great-grandmother's. She left it to me with specific instructions: it should go to the daughter who learns to take up space. Inside the box was a ring not flashy or expensive, but beautiful in its simplicity. A single pearl surrounded by small diamonds, set in gold that had been polished smooth by generations of strong women. I don't understand, I said. You have 3 daughters. No, my mother said quietly. I have 3 children, but only one daughter who had to fight for her place at our table. Only one who learned to value herself when we failed to show her how. I slid the ring onto my finger, feeling the weight of it, the history it carried. Mom, I failed you, she said, her voice steady but thick with emotion. For 34 years, I failed to see what was right in front of me. A daughter who was stronger, more capable, more remarkable than I ever dared to be. And instead of celebrating that, I tried to diminish it. You were doing what you thought was right. No, I was doing what was comfortable, what was familiar, what required the least change from me. She reached for my hand, her fingers tracing the ring that now connected us across generations. But you changed anyway. You became exactly who you were meant to be, despite us, not because of us. Below us, the scholarship recipients were beginning their evening session, a workshop on building support networks, on creating the belonging they'd never been given. Their voices rose and fell like music, the sound of women learning to claim their space in the world. I want to fund another cohort, I said, twice as many scholarships. And I want to expand the program, not just college students, but women starting businesses, women changing careers, women who need to know that it's never too late to choose yourself. My mother smiled, and for the first time in years, it reached her eyes. Your great-grandmother would be proud. She built her first business when she was 55, after your great-grandfather died and left her with nothing but debts and the assumption that she'd quietly disappear. What did she do? She didn't disappear. She built an empire instead, quietly, without fanfare, without asking permission, just like you did. As the evening deepened, we walked back through the villa's halls, past the room where I'd once felt like an unwelcome guest. Now it felt different, not like home exactly, but like a place where I belonged as much as anyone else. Will you stay for the rest of the week? I asked as we reached the entrance hall. If you'll have me, I'd like to meet more of your scholarship recipients. I'd like to understand the work you're doing. It's not just my work anymore. Emma's been helping with the selection process. Michael's firm is handling the legal structure pro bono. Even Dad has been making calls to his network, finding mentorship opportunities. My mother paused at the foot of the grand staircase, her hand on the marble banister. We're learning, all of us, learning how to make space for the daughter we should have been celebrating all along. That night, I stood at my bedroom window, looking out over the vineyards that had witnessed my quiet revolution 6 months earlier. The ring on my finger caught the moonlight, a reminder of the women who had come before me, who had learned to value themselves in a world that preferred them diminished. Tomorrow, I would continue the work building programs, funding dreams, creating spaces where belonging wasn't conditional. But tonight, I was simply a daughter who had finally found her place at the table, not by making herself smaller, but by teaching others to build bigger tables. The Tuscan night was soft and warm, filled with the promise of new beginnings. And for the first time in my life, I felt completely, unequivocally at home in my own skin. In the distance, church bells marked the passing hours, their bronze voices carrying across hills that had witnessed centuries of family stories. This was mine now, not a story of revenge or anger, but of quiet revolution, of a woman who had learned that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply refuse to disappear. The scholarship recipients would return to their lives tomorrow, carrying with them the knowledge that they deserved every success they achieved. And I would return to mine, knowing that the table I'd built was strong enough to hold us all.